this work. Okay. Where this is called creating compelling social content. First, we're going to do some introductions. Then we're going to explain why does Facebook exist. Then we're going to do some, Laura's going to do some social sharing best practices. Then I'm going to do a insane ADD rant about how to tell a good story on social. We'll give you the too long don't read version, and then we'll take your questions. Add your questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom, not the chat. Any questions should definitely just stay in that little Q&A button for us to notice them as I'll be flying through this. In fact, I'm going to hide the chat feature while I'm doing that. And we will answer all of your questions after we get through the entire deck, just because there's so much to cover, and I want to make sure you get it all. Additionally, if my slides will turn, let's see. We're going to be talking pretty fast, and we're going to throw a lot of stuff at you. If there's any technical issues that come up during it, you can feel free to flag those in the normal chat, and our assistant, Aaron, and our Netroots rep, Linda, will help take care of it, and we'll get it figured out. But we're excited to talk to you guys. Don't worry about taking notes. Again, this will be recorded, and there'll be summary slides again at the end. Laura, why don't you tell them about yourself?
Okay, well, anybody can be a self-declared social media expert, but theoretically, why I am one is I've had a lot of success on social media with my story and with other people's stories. And of course, Donald Trump blocked me on Twitter, so I must be doing something right.
And my name's Adam Mordecai. I'm the Director of Creative Strategy at Progress Now. I used to work at Upworthy. I helped cause the Dean Scream. I was our highest performing writer and our worst performing writer, depending on which year you looked at it. I have a Facebook page that I'm not active enough on, that I have 140,000 people on. And I helped run the Earth for Facebook back when the Paris Climate Accord stuff was happening and still existed, thanks Donald Trump. And I convinced a 2020 presidential candidate to phonobomb me at Netroots Nation a long time ago. I was hoping to redo that this year in Denver, but sadly, we're all working it from home. And so now we're going to get into the meat of this. Laura, if you want to start with the Facebook side of this.
One of the reasons why you should use Facebook, whether you like it or not, is because that's where the people are. 69% of US adults use Facebook, and 74% of those use it at least once a day. Stats on other platforms may be different, but Facebook is a mass audience. And you can use Facebook to get beyond the people that you're already talking to, that are on your email list, that are already fans of your page. As more people share your content, other people will see it. And you can make this a effective use of your time with some tips we'll talk about, so that it isn't a huge time suck. And if you're looking at what social media to use for your campaign or you individually or whatever you're trying to do, different platforms cater to different audiences. Like I said, Facebook is a mass platform. 2/3 of Americans or so use it. Twitter can be better for reaching influencers and the media specifically. So if you want to drive a story in the media, Twitter can be important for that. And then if you have images or video, then you're looking at Instagram and YouTube and other platforms like TikTok, which may or may not be getting banned, unclear. Just make sure that whatever you are doing on social media, that you commit to it and you do it right, rather than setting up a Facebook page and then not posting anything for a year, because that just looks sad. So if you're going to do that, if you want to take properties off the market, just set up your Facebook page and then unpublish it, so nobody squats on your domain, on your URL or anything. Facebook can be tricky. The way all these platforms work is they have way more content than they could ever possibly show you. So they have to pick and choose what they're going to show any individual person. And how they do that is they all have an algorithm that determines whether they show one of any number of things to you. And most of their algorithms, Facebook's especially, is based on engagement. How people interact with your stuff will determine whether they show you more from that page or less. And also, it's specific to the user. So if you like cat videos, if you like a lot of videos on Facebook, Facebook will show you more videos. And if you engage with news sources or whatever, Facebook will show you more of whatever you engage with, because these are for-profit companies and how they make money is keeping you there. So it's important to work with the algorithm instead of against it. Post content that gets people engaged with your stuff, gets people talking, commenting, liking, sharing. Because if you put something out and it just lands with a thud, that can hurt your performance in the future. I see. Ooh.
Oh, sorry, I moved a little too far fast.
Oh, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Okay, so what is good content on Facebook? It's stuff that Facebook likes, that gets Facebook more eyeballs. So the things you should be posting, or the content you post, the way you should be framing it is to get people to like, comment, or share on it. And also you should be a regular poster on Facebook, because Facebook's algorithm kind of is tailored to that. If you don't post regularly on Facebook, Facebook doesn't have enough information to know how to categorize your stuff, and it can hurt your performance. But you shouldn't feel responsible for this huge burden of coming up with daily content for social media, in that you can borrow from other people. Let other people do some of the work for you. And specifically, there's a tool that's free for nonprofits and cheap for campaigns called Action Sprout, that has real people in a room somewhere pulling together good curated content on various issues. But you can take a look at other people's social media feeds, and if you see what's performing well, if it works well for somebody else, it'll probably work well for you. And look at scheduling tools so that you don't feel chained to a desk posting all the time. Facebook has a native scheduler built in. Twitter, you can use TweetDeck, which is free. And Instagram now, you can use Facebook's content manager to schedule Instagram posts, so that can take some of the burden of social media off you if you have some good stuff scheduled in the future. But if you do advanced scheduling, make sure that if something happens in the real world to make that irrelevant or inappropriate, that you jump in there and turn off your scheduled stuff. Also, especially if you're representing an organization, or even for yourself, make sure that what you're sharing is good news and not fake news. That take the extra minute to make sure that if you're saying something, that it is true. We don't need to be contributing to that problem. And especially make sure that you're sharing a variety of content, because like what I said, Facebook's algorithm tailors to the individual. So if you like videos, Facebook will show you more videos. And if a page only posts news articles, you are less likely to see their content. So that's why it's important, do a broad mix, do photos, do videos, do news articles, do surveys to get people engaged, so that people will see your stuff. Because if you only do one thing, you are limiting your audience. Okay. It's no closed captioning for this session, unfortunately, because of technical issues. I am sorry. Also, the slides look a little blurry for me, but we're working on that. And I think we can make the slides available after the fact.
Yeah, we can.
It's blurry.
We'll release them afterwards. We'll give you a summary deck of this as well as the video.
Yeah, it's kind of blurry for me too, so if I'm squinting, that's what's going on. So your page is where you banter with your audience. The #1 rule of social media is be interesting, because nobody has to read your stuff. The Facebook algorithm, all these platforms algorithms will not show your stuff if people don't engage with it. And people choose with their time whether to see your stuff or unfollow, unlike, etc., and stop seeing your content. So most people, unless they're Oppo researchers, are not paid to see your content. So that's why it's important to be interesting and entertaining. And talk like a human, because that is more interesting to most people than something dry that sounds like it comes from a textbook. And make sure that people are empowered by your content and that you give them things to do as opposed to just giving them information. You know, if you tell them something terrible, give them something to do about it. And how you can get your stuff seen more widely. First of all, make sure it's good stuff, that you're working with the algorithms so that whatever platform you're on wants to help you out, is going to show it. And then work with more people behind the scenes to spread your content. You can set up cross-posting in Facebook, which allows you to share video content with multiple pages. It doesn't post automatically, but it gives them the option to share out your videos. So if you're running a big page, it's good to set up those relationships ahead of time, and then you could ship content out to multiple pages at once that they can then post. Also, you can organize your friends and allies in private groups. You can use Slack, you can use Facebook groups, you can use DM groups on Twitter, so that you can alert people when something really good is out there and you want them to help uplift it. Just make sure that you aren't the annoying friend that's always asking for a loan. Give as well as you get. Be reciprocal. Don't just always be taking. And don't try to make fetch happen. If you're posting something that just isn't working, if you ask your friends to share it, that they will suffer. Their performance will hurt. So make sure that you are sharing the good stuff. Not just something that your boss wants you to share, although maybe you have to do it, but I wouldn't flog something that's terrible. Okay.
Is the screen's clearer now?
Yes, it is clearer, yes.
Okay, figured out what the problem was. All right. Okay, so from there, I will take it over because Facebook. Let's talk about Facebook because Facebook ruins everything. We have to work in that platform. You have to do it, but like, you know, we know they've had a history of like slowing down reach. Like when I was working at Upworthy, everything sort of dropped out at the bottom in the middle of 2015, and then they've been changing it along the way. Russia was allowed to like manipulate things. They ended up like censoring news sites because conservative sites told them to. So you have to be very, very like strategic in your planning, but also realize that sometimes that won't even stop it. But making something go viral is really not going to happen right now. The way the algorithm works at this point, it's very, very rare. So anyone who tells you they can make anything go viral is not telling the truth, or really naive, or both. Almost nothing will, and there are no tricks to like magically make something viral, especially when your boss says it. If your boss is telling you make something go viral, tell them to get you a magic wand that actually works first, because it's just not going to happen. So it's really almost impossible, like I said. So let's give this talk a more realistic title: How to Help Complex Ideas Reach a Large Audience and Inform People by Creating Shorter, Engaging, Bite-sized Stories that are optimized for Facebook. It's not as sexy of a title, but it is what is currently happening. So all you need to do is tell a great story to the right audience. I'm going to repeat these things multiple times to the deck, so you don't have to write any of this down. But again, first you have to have a good story. You need to have great characters. You need to have emotional resonance. You need to have some surprise in it. Surprise is very key. You need to have a good story structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end, like it always happens. And it needs to have some meaning and some action and substance that people can take from it. And you really do have to be very careful about identifying the audience. You need to know who they are, where they're watching it from. Are they on TikTok? Are they on Insta? Are they on Facebook? You need to know how to frame your content in a way that keeps them hooked. and you need to give them somewhere to go and take action. And once you've got them hooked on a regular basis, learn their habits and learn what content they want and continue to repeat that. So surprising facts and surprises are the most powerful tools in your arsenal. The thing that always shocks people is the thing that's going to get them to stay and hear the rest of the stuff you have to say. When you tell people surprising things, they're like, okay, I want to learn more. But with those facts comes great responsibilities. You can't just have facts. You have to have some emotional resonance to it. And so one of the things you need to know about facts is that they can change people's minds sometimes. There's this guy named David McRaney, who's a podcast producer, and he made this thing called You Are Not So Smart, is the podcast. And he also wrote these books about how facts can change people's minds. And he talks about the backfire effect. But it depends on the type of fact. So for example, I'm going to blow your mind with some facts. Maybe you already know this, maybe you don't. Do you think Napoleon was really short? How tall do you think he was? Was he 4'8", 5'2", or 5'7"? Well, everyone thinks he's short. He wasn't short. He was actually 5'2" in old-timey French measurement, but 5'7" in real measurement. And he was actually average height for a Frenchman, but everyone thought he was short because he had paintings of him with taller soldiers behind him and things like that. And it gave a false perception. Napoleon wasn't short. Blind as a bat isn't a real thing. Bats can see great, and they have echolocation and can see better than most of us. It's not true. And lastly, like Henry Ford didn't invent the assembly line. One of his meatpacking folks went to a meatpacking plant and saw something similar there and adopted it to Henry Ford. And then he got credited with the invention, but he didn't actually do it. And in actuality, way back at the Venetians had assembly lines going way back in the day. And they did it on boats and rivers. They were building boats on rivers, and they've had them all the way back then. So those are 3 random facts that don't affect you at all. You accept these facts. You accept that Napoleon's not short. You accept that the assembly line wasn't by Henry Ford, because these facts don't define you. So, you know, but if your facts challenge people's worldview, then things get a little more different, right? Because liberals see a different feed than conservatives, and everyone has their own interpretation of what facts really are. And a lot of those facts are core to their identity. And so your brain panics with some facts. If it's something that's core to your identity, you don't handle it well. Scientists did a study with an MRI, and they found that if you have a fact that challenges your entire worldview, your brain goes into fight or flight and thinks that you're being attacked by a bear, essentially. And so, because if that one fact isn't true, maybe not everything else isn't true. So your brain has a choice. It's called the backfire effect. When your core beliefs are challenged, it says either you can choose, okay, climate change is real. You can say, no, it's not, you're biased. Or you can say, wait, if climate change is real, that means maybe my dad was lying about guns and racial justice and climate change, everything else in my life, my father, my minister, my parents, my grandparents, my family, everything I've ever known is a lie.
It's gonna pop.
Or this one thing is a lie. Which do I
Just breathe.
Oh God, what's happening? And your brain explodes, and you don't want that. So people go with you're biased. I'm so sorry. I thought I turned the video audio really loud. Don't worry, there will be no more video audio. I will stop that. Is the audio coming through, or are you guys okay? Do I need to pause? It's good now. Okay, cool. All right, there will be no more audio like that. I won't do that to you again, I promise. So what can you do when basically Neo's brain just exploded? It was a clip of Neo. So what can you do if you're trying to get, okay, so what happened, I just said is, when you're looking at a fact that challenges your brain, okay, the fight or flight. So you didn't hear the part about fight or flight. So essentially your brain panics when it hears something that challenges your worldview. Because if that one thing is true, if climate change is real and you don't believe that, then everything else your parents and your family said was a lie. It means if climate change is real, then maybe racial justice is real. And maybe liberals aren't all evil. And maybe all these other things, your parents may have lied to you, your grandparents, all these other people may have lied to you, and your brain can't handle that. So it chooses, you're biased because it doesn't want to accept that one fact, because it's not about that one fact. It's about all the facts that person knows. So when you're trying to get through to people who can't accept those facts, you have to get to them through a different way, which is reinforce empathy and trust in personal storytelling. And so the way you do that is through this empathetic storytelling I've been mentioning. You tell them a good story. You have character, you have emotional connection, you have those surprises in the story that everybody wants. You have that story structure that gives them a beginning, middle, and an end, and it gives them meaning or a way to take action. And again, the data you use to target that story is, you know who the audience you're talking to is, you know the medium you're talking to them in. If it's, you know, kids on TikTok, you have to tell a different story than you do to elderly people on Facebook. You know, you need to have the right framing for it. You need to give them actions to take, something small that they can bite on. And then once you've got them and regularly track their habits, you learn which content that works really well for them. So the first thing is, you have to define your audience. Who are you trying to reach? Getting my mom to like my page on Facebook was easy, right? Getting my mom to share stories that I post is way harder because she's not technically savvy. She's not big on social. And getting my mom's friends to click on the things she shared is even harder. Getting my mom's friends to share the things that they clicked on that she shared is harder. And getting their friends' friends to share is even harder. And getting Kevin Bacon to share is the hardest. If you're really trying to reach a wide audience, you want to get that 6 degrees, right? You don't just want your base. You want to get everybody along the way. So you have to really define who you're trying to talk to with the video and what you're trying to accomplish with it. And there's data behind virality in the packaging of that content. One of the things, this is like from way back in the day, is packaging your content with good headlines, good share images on Facebook, all the things we've known for the last, 10, 12 years. And this is just like the packaging part of it, right? You need to know if you're looking at your content on Facebook and it's getting no shares and no clicks, that means you have a boring piece of content that nobody likes and it wasn't framed well. If you have a piece of content that's getting lots of shares but not many clicks, that means you have a good piece of content that with a better headline and better packaging could do well. If you have a piece of content that's getting no shares and tons of clicks, that's clickbait. Everyone hates that. It should die in a fire. I'm sorry, I helped create that. And then if you have shares and clicks, that means you have good content that everybody likes and you're gonna win and has a chance to get some reach. It's not gonna go all over the internet, but it does have some chance to get some reach. So to get clicks, it's good to focus on framing things well. And more importantly, to get shares, your content must live up to its framing. So you have to hook them with that smart frame. So this is an old, tired example, but I like to use it because it's so insane. Both me and my boss decided to write up a video about 2 monkeys who were paid unequally. Essentially, they did a science experiment where scientists handed a rock to a monkey and they went to the other side of the cage, gave it back to the scientist, and then the scientist would give them a cucumber as a treat. They would go back and forth, and they would go back and forth. The next time they did it, one monkey got a grape while the other one still got a cucumber. And the monkey with the cucumber saw that the other monkey got a grape, got furious, and flung it back at the scientist, thus teaching us about income inequality and pay inequality. So I thought I was clever and wrote a headline and packaging for that that said pop culture references that only 1/3 of the audience understood, and said, remember, Planet of the Apes, it's closer to reality than you think. My boss wrote 2 monkeys were paid unequally, see what happens next. We never used that kind of headline again. I'm sorry that exists, but it told you what you were gonna see. I got 10,000 page views. We both shared it on Facebook, 2 different versions, and hers got 7 million page views on the exact same piece of content. So the lesson here is like, package well, let people know what they're getting, but tell a story in that framing, and it'll get them to the actual content that you want to show them. And it made me sad. And again, these were 2012 headlines. Do not use them now, they're bad. And it has to pay off. With video, where we're mostly moving to and where things have been lately, there's also data behind that virality. Facebook has this metric called 3-second views, which it counts as just normal views. A 3-second view can literally be someone scrolling slowly by your video on your page or on a feed. It isn't really an indicator of good quality stuff. All it tells you is if you've made the first 3 seconds hooky enough that they've stopped scrolling to look at it. So if you have low 3-second views, your video is not going to go anywhere, and you've got to have something better for the opening. If you're getting 3-second views, but no one's staying past 10 seconds, it's still a good opening, but you're not telling a good story and people don't want to stay for the whole thing. If you've got 3 seconds, 10 seconds, and your completion rate's low, you're getting there. And then if you have them actually completing your videos, you're telling the story well. Now, most videos, really, most of the audience, you only get like 10% of the audience to stick around for it if you're really lucky. And so really factoring that in and making sure that you use those first 10 seconds wisely is really, really important. Laura, one of Laura's greatest successes is a video with Now This. And the very first 3 seconds as you're scrolling through your feed is this shocking moment of her in chemotherapy and telling her story with text on screen that people can read with sound off that shows them what they're about to walk into. Trump blocked this woman with stage 4 cancer on Twitter. As you're scrolling and you see what she's going through and she's talking about her story, it's a compelling narrative. So you have to grab their attention while they scroll, and you have to make sure it's right off the mark that it's doing it. And it has to be with the sound off because most people don't have their sound on. Don't waste time with cinematic intros on social platforms. It's just not ideal. You have to know which platform you're on and make sure your content works with that. Spell everything out in eye-catching fonts that are readable. You need to be able to read what you're seeing on screen, and that's really clutch. There's also engagement data that's really important. As Laura talked about, like getting on your content to like regularly perform, you need to make sure there's engagement on the actual posts themselves. So you need to have like high comments, high engagement, and high shares usually. If you don't have all of those things together, your content isn't going as far as it could because people aren't interacting with it, which means making smart share asks, which means making it a conversational piece, which means making it pretty shareable. So make sure your packaging is good, but most importantly, you do have to tell a really compelling story, which gets me to the crux of everything I've sort of learned over the last 10 years, which is positive action-oriented stories will see the best results. Usually when researchers look at the data around video interaction, they look at, do people have a positive or negative feeling about it? And is it activating or deactivating? So you can have a negative video, but it's activating because you have to go stop and fight for something. And so our data also showed that you have to make them feel empowered. It's not enough to make them activated. You can't just say, we all have to fix this. You have to give them a small reachable goal to get there. You can't just say the world is on your shoulders. You can say, like, if you do this in your backyard, it'll save the trees. It will help this with this, get this law passed to protect us from the police or these other things. You have to give them the smaller version of it to really make them feel empowered that they can help do something. So I'm going to talk to you about something what I think is super boring, local municipal power. This video, there was a video New Era, Colorado did. There was a ballot measure in Boulder, Colorado, where Xcel Energy, they had passed a ballot initiative, the city did, that municipalized the power, took it from Xcel. Xcel put another ballot measure on the ballot that would demunicipalize it and take it back so they could charge insane rates. So New Era, Colorado, they only had 3,500 fans on their Facebook page at the time. They were going to raise $40,000 to fundraise to stop this ballot initiative from passing. And they had $15,000 towards their goal of $40,000 for the fundraiser. And they had a $6,000 budget for the movie they were going to make. I showed up to a meeting and my friend said, I want you to look at this video about local municipal power. I said, this is incredibly boring. There's no way this will work. And then I watched it and I was completely wrong because they told their story fantastically well. When I tested it more than I tested any piece of content before I'd done. It broke its fundraising record while it was still in testing. And then when we distributed it, it did really, really well. And they raised almost 5 times the amount that they were expecting. Additionally, they tripled their goal, and then they ended up winning at the polls by a 2-to-1 margin. And this video, though it is not a social media post video that's optimized for Facebook, it hit all of these notes that I found really interesting. We'll pass the link around later to the video. But it was a really powerful video. And we're not going to watch it here, but we'll send it around the link. But essentially, it did all of these things I noticed that were very interesting. And no piece of content is going to do all of these things at once. But these things that it did do were really successful. And again, they had smart characters, they had emotion, they had surprises, they had structure, and they had meaning. And from that, I learned a bunch of things that I'm going to share with you that if you can apply them to this, it will work on a lot of your content. And again, you can't do this with everything, but you can do it with some. First thing, again, is relatable characters. You need a hero, you need a villain. It's, the basics. Pixar has this thing called Pixar's 22 Rules for Relatable Characters. It's a great piece. I'll pass that link along too. 2, strategic story structure. Again, you have to have your beginning, your middle, and your end. Kurt Vonnegut did these like story arc lines describing what different story types are. They all go back and, you know, from the beginning of time, storytelling comes down to a very few basic story arcs. If you hit one of those and you do it well, you can really like collect people and get them interested. 3, you got to hook them immediately. This video did a really good job of that and like set the David versus Goliath story, just like I said with Laura's video. You know, in This American Life, if you ever listen to it, they don't start by talking about This American Life. They start by saying Bob was wrestling an alligator and questioning his life choices. They put you in the middle of the story. Every one of your stories should start somewhere in the middle at a suspenseful moment that gets people excited to see the rest of it. 4, you should surprise them repeatedly. I go back to this time and time and again. When you give people shocking facts that are outside what they expect of the world, it really wakes them up. I was just doing a research for like, you know, voter fraud issue. There were 31 voters out of 1 billion who intentionally committed voter fraud over 15 years between 2000 and 2015. That's an insane stat. You are like way more likely to get bitten by a shark than be a victim of voter fraud. That's an insane fact. So when you have those kind of data points, those are great moments, things that you can bring into your story. Also, keep it simple, which I am not doing for you at all, but you should be doing for everybody else. You should keep it to a minimum. There's this thing called the Debunker's Handbook that kind of guides you through how to help prevent narratives from spreading. When people talk about debunking for things, they try to dump all of the information on people, and it's not retainable. If they get 21 different things told to them, they can't wrap their brain around it. But if you keep it simple, 1, 2, 3 different things to counter argue what they're talking about, they can wrap their brain around that, and it's easier to deal with. You also have to meet people where they live. Don't teach a 401 level idea to a 101 level class, right? You know, we can't, before this year, like even talking about white privilege was a 401 level thing. With the movement that's been happening with George Floyd and like everything else, people, it feels like, at least to me, and maybe I'm naive, are starting to wake up, and we can start having more advanced classes. But you have to like think about the audience you're talking to and what they can handle and what their starting point is, and frame the language to that level of messaging so that you can bring them along with you rather than talk over their head or make them feel like they don't understand. And these are just examples of headlines of that. I'm gonna roll past these. But again, talk to them on a human empathetic level. Being authentic, we can't emphasize that enough. We've said it before. When we at Upworthy, we had when the ice bucket challenge, when you could still do an ice bucket challenge thing. And when people started asking, you know, how do I get my ice bucket? You know, the thing about the ice bucket, it was a very rare moment in time where all of these different forces just combined, and there was luck. There was a moment in time where people were paying attention, and there was a lot of momentum, and they had a lot of strategy involved in that, but it still boiled down to like other people feeling like human and connected to it that made it move fast. A video we covered, a guy was talking about his mom having ALS, and then he said he just found out he had it. And it really hooked people and got them in, and it ended up exploding Ellen before she was causing problems. And he was wildly successful. He got a lot of money for it. He helped raise money for ALS, and his family was more well off. And that authenticity and that being real really spoke to people. The next thing is personalizing the issue. This is a very weird thing to talk about. I'm going to talk about towels. They did this study about towels hanging up in hotels, and they decided to see how to get more people to hang up their towels to save water. For some people, they put up a sign saying hanging up your towels is good for the environment, and it slightly increased participation. For other people, they said the majority of guests in this hotel hang up their towels. And knowing that the majority of guests did that, the people in the hotel rooms, it increased the hanging up of towels by 26%. Then for the last group, they hung up a sign that said the majority of guests in this specific hotel room hung up their towels, and it increased participation another 33%. Just knowing that it was this room versus this hotel versus in general made people think like, oh, I can make a difference in this small way with towels. Now, again, that expanding that to wider, you have to think about how you can tie things back to your community when you're speaking about actions you want people to take. If it's save the world, it's harder for them to grasp. If it's make my community do the right thing, that's much more tangible for them, and figuring out how to message that to them will be key to the success of what you're doing. Next thing is seeding optimism and offering solutions. You know, when you see, knowing your community participates more makes people take action. When they first did the lunch counter protest, it was 4 dudes in their dorm room and calling each other chicken, and they all showed up together. And when people saw them doing it, they knew they could participate too. And showing the success of the previous people will help the next round of people want to participate as well. Just as we've seen with all the protests and marches, the more we see of other people partaking, we all want to be a part of that. Next is translating data into human speak. There was a video a while back that said basically like 32 million acres per year in the rainforests are being destroyed. For the average person, there's no context to that. That number is so big, they don't understand what it is. So you have to give it to them in a number they relate to. So instead of 32 million acres per year, they translate to 1 football field every 78 seconds. It's a much smaller size, but it's also a scale they can understand and makes them grasp the data much more closely. Next is let people think for themselves. If you really want to reach a wide audience, talking to your base is one thing, but if you want to reach a wide audience, you don't need to tell them everything about why the other side is the devil. They are already going, the facts will usually speak for themselves, and if you're really shrill about it, it will murder that sharing beyond your base. So you give people all of the facts, like these people are doing this, not they're trying to destroy you all. It's explain to them what they're actively doing. It's bad enough what they're actively doing. You don't need to tell them how to think about it. They will get there, especially when you want to reach that widest audience. Now, again, if you're reaching a smaller audience of your base or something like that, you don't need to be that careful with it, but it's something to think about. Next is letting people think for themselves. Along that same line, on let people think for themselves. 350.org did this video about climate change, where they said they were going to do a new naming practice where they named hurricanes after the Congress people and senators who don't believe in climate change. And it's this hilarious video, but they don't name the party in it. They don't say Republican or Democrat. They just say these senators and these Congress people are, don't understand climate change. It sort of like mocks them and makes them feel like we're not like saying all people who are a Republican are evil, but like just all the people who think climate change isn't real are not terribly bright. And it worked out really well. We're running pretty long on time, so I'm not going to show the video right now. I'm just going to keep moving, especially with the audio thing, but we'll pass the link around to it as well. So the next thing is address concerns head on, but gently. If you know that the other side is going to have talking points that argues against you, make sure you address whatever they were going to say in your own framing so that they don't have a chance to criticize you. If you can put that into your content, it can't be done with everything, but it's a great way to like diffuse and deflect arguments before they arise. We're almost done with this. Next is, and with that, if there, again, when you remove a gap, when you're debunking something, you need to replace it with an alternate narrative. So again, if you're debunking something, give them a new solution or a new fact to replace it. Otherwise, they'll forget why the other thing's not true, and they'll just go back to thinking that thing is true. Another way to describe it is one scientist described it as a table. If you're taking away somebody's core ideas, you need to put you're taking away a table leg from the table they're at. So you need to replace it with a new idea so that they know that there's something to replace it. So if mail-in voting is evil, well, no, actually it's the safest and it increases voting turnout. It's like, here is the solution and here's how we fix it. And it makes people feel more positive about it, and it helps them retain that fact rather than go back to their own way of thinking. And lastly, or second to last, is make an easy ask. You can't ask for donations and you can't ask for action on every piece of content you're putting out there. People will get like, it's the boy who cried wolf kind of thing. You need to be smart and strategic about when you make the big ask. And for the most part, make the small ask. Get them to educate their friends on an issue. Get them to share that piece of content personally on a DM with someone they know. Get them to like it and comment and share on most of your stuff. And then when you do have a big ask that's important enough and relevant enough for people to want to really take action, you can make it and it'll actually be successful. And lastly, I'm going to drink a cup of water before I choke. Lastly, leave them in a good place. Don't leave them feeling small and powerless. We're working in a reality right now that is horrifying and depressing, and like human rights are being violated everywhere, and all these things are happening between Corona and immigration and Trump and, you know, kids in cages and our election systems being on, you know, put on the fryer. We have so many things that we're trying to deal with right now, and so many fires to put out. And it doesn't have to have a happy ending, as long as it invokes an emotion that will give them that next step, even if that step is tiny. Tiananmen Square is a perfect example of that. That story is tragic and horrible, but it's also a story about a hero and how one person can make a difference in the bigger scheme of things. So when you're closing your videos, don't leave them that depressed. Give them somewhere to go where they can fight, where they can take action. So I just broke all of these rules, a lot of these rules, and I'm going to simplify it for y'all. You can screenshot this. We'll also have the deck out there. So for when you're making your stories, have a relatable characters, have a story arc, hook them immediately, surprise them throughout, keep it simple, meet people where they live, be authentic. If you can just do all of these things, I know it's really easy to do. Personalize it, offer solutions, make data relatable, let people think for themselves, address concerns with your frame, make small asks, and leave them in a good place. If you do all of that every time, all of your content will go viral 2% of the time. But as long as you're like being considerate of these things, you know, that will make a difference. And when you are making a video specifically, I simplify it even more down to some basic video content questions. And this applies to graphic content as well. 5 questions is, who are you trying to reach? What are the most surprising facts that will open people's eyes? Again, this is so key. I can't tell you how key it is to like surprise people so that they stick around, because that gives you the 3rd question. How do you hook them in the first 3 seconds? You take one of the most shocking things, or you frame a question, or you ask them something, or you blow their mind with a fact. Then you open with that again, with sound off, being able to run that video that they can read on Facebook, on social, on TikTok, so they know what they're getting into. 4, when you're making that content, is there a human story you can tie to this? How can you bring it around so that they can connect to it personally? And what emotion do you want to leave them with, and what action do you want them to take? If you answer those basic things, your video content will be able to have a higher success rate. And again, with the sound thing, you guys will remember this, but I'll just start to play it and we can go on to questions from here.
No, I would argue that this is a triumph of democracy. Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's.
So there's going to be those authentic moments that you can't fake, that you get lucky and it's just going to happen. But most of the time, it's going to rely on strategy and all those other things. So stay classy. Here's a kitten on a turtle. And now we will get to your questions. I'm sorry about the technical issues at the beginning. We will get you this whole deck. Laura, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Okay. The first question from Lauren Hall. She has an issue with maybe unsympathetic people that she wants to tell the story of people that you may not naturally sympathize with. And my thoughts on that are, pick one person, because in general, humans relate more to a person than people at large, which is why adopt a child type fundraising appeals do better than help solve, the problem of starving children across an entire continent. So personalize it, make it one person, and people will relate more to that individual than to a group of people undifferentiated, which is how people can hold confusing, conflicting ideas in their own head about, I hate this group of people, but I like my brother-in-law, that kind of thing. So I would say, go with individual storytellers as much as you can to really be able to get people to open their minds. Adam, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, that all hits it pretty much on the head. It's really just finding that human who can tell that compelling story. One of the most frustrating things about the work we all do is like, there shouldn't have to be a perfect narrator for people to understand and get why these issues matter. But at the end of the day, balancing that struggle, we do, like, telling those individual stories can really help people understand that it's, when they hear it about that individual, it makes them feel like, oh, that could be me, or that no one should have to deal with that, and it's more complex than they could if we just give them the statistics and the overarching data. So those individual stories are really key.
The next question is best captioning software or app. And first of all, I would say if you don't have resources, you can use what's provided for free. For Facebook, if you upload a video, they offer an auto captioning service. It's not perfect. You will certainly want to take a few minutes to go through it soundbite by soundbite and correct it as it gets things wrong. And YouTube also offers the ability to do that, to step through your video and do the captions. Adam, do you have any other thoughts? And some people are also suggesting in chat, they're saying Otter is an option and rev.com.
Yeah, I in my past, I have just like uploaded it as in draft mode to Facebook and let it do auto captioning, and then gone through and corrected it through the system. That's been my easiest way to do it, but there are other ones out there. I haven't done a lot of playing with those though. Another question somebody asked and Laura did answer was the ideal video length. What is the ideal video length? Again, it's the amount of time it takes to tell the story you want. Like shorter usually can be better, but again, it's really about, is it going to convey the story well? My biggest hit of all time was a 22-minute documentary. Again, this was in YouTube days when Facebook was letting everything through. A 22-minute documentary about a kid coming to terms with his own forthcoming death from cancer. My second biggest hit of all time was a 37-second handmade camera PSA about how to treat drunk girls in your dorm room. So like it's really a matter of, does it tell the story well? And so when you're looking at the content you're making, ask yourself what is going to be compelling, and is this like, am I getting too into the weeds with this narrative or not, and go from there. Another thing I've found that one of my old bosses told me when she worked at This American Life, they would, after they finished a podcast, they would all get into a room together and listen to it, and they would all write down without talking to each other when they got bored. And then if there was consensus around it, they would figure out how to fix it, trim it, and edit it.
And Noelle wants to know, she does social media for an environmental organization, and what has been the best hook to environmental videos? Adam, you've probably seen some of that at Upworthy.
Yeah, so again, it's like, it depends on the frame and the tone and like what is going to, and what the audience is. But like, for example, the 350.org video is like, it opened with the names of all these like people, of these kids who have names named after hurricanes, and it's not their fault that they were named that way. Now on Facebook today, it probably wouldn't work as well because it's like just random names, but you just have to think about if you were scrolling by, or your parents were scrolling by, and they saw this text on the screen, or this image on the screen, or this, or like something weird is happening, bright colors, something to draw their eye in, what would draw their eye in to really open it? So if it's about, it really depends on the story you're telling and what the topic is, on how you get them. It could be the opening line of a police action. It could be something that will draw them in and make you think, oh, I need to stop and see what the rest of this is. And there's no one specific clear answer to that. It's really just your sense of theater and understanding what people are doing when they're scrolling by on their phone, because the vast majority are scrolling by on their phone. But again, in COVID times, it's changed slightly and more people are at their computers because they're stuck at home. But usually whatever would hook them right at the start, it could be many different things to deal with.
And I would say, if you can, personalize it. Climate change is the sort of issue that you know, people have had a lot of trouble getting people to care about. But with Greta Thunberg, finally, a person with a compelling story. Humans think in terms of stories, and you're always going to get further if you can frame an abstract issue in terms of real people. Okay. Diego says, for explaining complex policies, should you break it up into a different post, or is there a way to fit into one post, such as slides on Instagram? I would say that if you have multiple thoughts in the same post, it's probably not going to do as well as if you can break it up in some way. I mean, if it's a complex policy and it all kind of hangs together as one thing, that might wind up being one really lengthy post. Or maybe it's a video explainer is the better way if it winds up just being a wall of text. People aren't generally going to read a wall of text. Anything to add, Adam? Or?
No, I mean, I think that's right. Like you can do it in multiple ways. I wouldn't, you know, like you can do like photo posts with just like infographics, very brief infographics dealing with it one piece at a time on Facebook. You can do the Instagram thing. And also you could do like a Medium article that like really synthesizes it down. You could also do a video. The question is like, with the time and bandwidth you have and the budget you have, like what's going to get you the most, what's going to be the most effective for you? What's a good use of resources, and what's going to like really get the real message you need to get across, and then prioritizing what content you make based on that.
Okay, and Miranda wants to know, for social video content curation, is it, should you be using square video, knowing that most users are on mobile, or use full frame?
I can speak to that one. There's lots of studies around this, and it's weird, but like if you make it square, it will increase your interaction rate significantly because people don't have to turn their phone, or because they thought they didn't know they could turn their phone. It was too small. They couldn't read everything. So it's different for each platform. Like Instagram Live has a different, like they want the full length of your screen. Facebook wants it square. You know, each of them has a different way of doing it. So you can create multiple versions if you have that kind of capacity, but square is like the easiest way to make sure that it's optimized to get the best performance.
Okay, Maureen wants to know, how do share graphics help enhance the story? What makes a good share graphic to share on social media? Quote graphics, images? And one thing I would say to that is, if you're going to spend money behind it, then you want minimal text if you're going to put something on Facebook, because Facebook's ad tools will penalize or even prevent you from running an ad on something that is text heavy. But if you are just doing organic, you're not putting any money behind it, I think that clunky old school graphics tend to do better, which is why you see all the big Facebook pages doing really old school clunky graphics, like your grandmother made it.
And also, if you're making share images that are actually for your articles, you want to make sure that they like close-up of human eyes or like close-ups of faces, like people can humanize it and see it better if they can, like, see, eyes are the window to the soul. Either that or something thought-provoking, like, or curiosity inducing. I can't really define what it is depending on the content, but like you don't want a big generic wide shot of a photo for your article, because that's what people are going to see and it's not going to draw them in. You need something up close that they can like hold on to and be tangible with.
Okay. Jose wants to know, for fundraising videos, what are the best practices to create one? Are there 3 or more points or structure to a video, and what are those? I would be cautious about fundraising videos, just because if you're trying to get people, because fundraising is usually done through email, that's the primary. And so if you're trying to get people to click on something, you want them to click on your donate link. You don't want them to click on a video and then have to go to donate from there. Or you can make an ActBlue page that has a video embedded or whatever. But then again, it's distracting from the purpose, which is, please give me money. So I would be cautious about putting a whole lot of time or effort into a fundraising video. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so for fundraising videos also, like the one that I covered earlier, that's sort of like the thesis for, like, They made a fundraising video for local municipal power ballot initiative and made $200,000. And it wasn't because they made a good fundraising video. It was because they made an incredibly compelling story that activated people enough and made them feel like they could help create solutions to fix things, very specific things. So a generic fundraising video, just like, hey, we need to save, we need money kind of thing, isn't going to get you much traction. If you have a very specific project and it's very compelling and people are like, I want to get in on that, that's a good reason to make a video for it. But you need to tell the story well first before you get to the fundraising part of it, so that they know why they're investing in this and what it makes them want to take part. It's sort of like any Kickstarter video or like anything that's done well. All the Kickstarters that do well tell a great story. And so like, just be like, story is the key to everything, but like generally speaking, you need to have a good reason to make a fundraising video. And we have about 3 minutes left before we have to shut this down, just FYI. But we'll talk fast.
Jennifer asks, what are the best video apps for non-pros to use to make compelling videos for social? And I use iMovie. There are certainly more expensive tools. iMovie may be built in if you have an Apple product. What do you recommend, Adam?
There's a bunch of online like companies that are like starting to offer like they can spin up videos fast for you kind of things. I can't remember their names off the top of my head. There's also an Adobe program that makes social videos pretty quickly that might be free. I mean, it'd be misremembering that, but you might want to check out Adobe's site because I think they have like an optimized for social thing going on there.
Yeah, like maybe they have a light version of Premiere or something.
Yeah, exactly. Spark, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Okay, Sarah asks, what about Twitter videos? Do square videos work well on that platform?
I have no knowledge of what works best on Twitter, but my assumption would be square is easier just because, again, people are scrolling on Twitter vertically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, vertical looks more intimate and horizontal looks more professional. And if you want to reach more people, intimate is going to do better than professional most of the time. Noelle says, do value statements on graphics perform better than infographics? Like, animals shouldn't be hunted, or this elephant needs to be free in the wild. So like upworthy kind of thing, and share if you agree. So do those do better than infographics? I would think it kind of depends on your audience. If you have a wonky audience, if you're Vox, infographics probably do better. But in general, over a large population on Facebook, probably less wonky performance.
Share both and test it, but let's see how they both perform. But I think we're about to be cut off. So thank you everybody for doing this. And you can go ahead and reach us on the chat program if you have more questions, and we will talk to you all later. And sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning, and have a great rest of Netroots.
Right. Thanks.